Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. It was another fun day in the NBA. Dame dropping 50 points, Braun getting another triple double, the 76ers picking up a close win against the Knicks. The Heat continue their great form, and that's something I want to talk about in today's episode. We'll talk about the mid-table Eastern Conference teams because it seems all very crowded out there. The Heat are in contention; they're back in fourth spot. The Celtics are dropping downwards. The Knicks have remained there surprisingly since the start of the season, and they haven't dropped. The Hawks are trending upwards. The Raptors are just a few games away. The Hornets have always been there. So it's a very crowded mid-table out there, and I think we should talk about them today. So here's how the table looks right now. Heat are 22-18, Hornets are 2018, Celtics are 2019, Hawks are 2020, and Knicks are 2021. So it's pretty close out there. Just one game, and they'll be back to fourth or they'll be back to 10th. So it's super close out there.
Knicks are 2021. They're the team of 2021.
And if you remember, the Indiana Pacers started off really brightly at the start of the season. They've really dropped, haven't they? Sabonis has been doing well, but then the rest of the team has surprisingly disappeared. I thought I really had great hopes from that team. But we'll start off with Miami Heat. They won 11 of their last 12. Jimmy Butler has been their hero, you could say, and he's come back. And since he's come back, he's averaging 23 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. He's almost averaging a triple double, a low key. I think he should be in the MVP conversations because every time we talk about now that Embiid is out for a month or a few weeks or whatever, Butler has really picked up the pace, and I think he should be in MVP conversations because LeBron has kind of slipped. I mean, it's wrong day to say that because he got a triple double, but Jokic is averaging like this. Doncic has not been performing up to expectations, I would say. So Heat has been amazing, haven't they? And do you think Jimmy Butler a low-key MVP caliber player?
A quick question. If Butler is Loki, is Bam Thor?
I will ignore that joke and
so everyone should. I don't think anyone should give that joke any credence. All right. I love it. I love the Heat. Hey, and don't we look good? Having said all season, they're just in a funk. They had an exhausting NBA Finals journey, and they didn't win. So it's not like there's a lot of motivation to get back up immediately. They've just had an extended off-season break. Only difference is some part of that came on the court. But hey, they had a lot of injuries to deal with too, right? Like they had a couple of players out or not fully fit. They had Bam come in and out. They also had this new challenge of how do we limit Dragic's minutes, which then means he's going to have to come off the bench to get consistent minutes in each quarter so that there's some momentum. And that means then we've got a bunch of kids starting, which was true at some point last season also, but they're all still learning. They're still figuring out how to deal with adversity, pace themselves and all of that. So if there's one thing we know about the Miami Heat, it is that they have an A+++ GM and coach tandem. And very few GMs and coaches work in cahoots as well as these two do, right? Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. So they were going to turn it around at some point. You can't just count them out. Player like Butler, he shows no signs of diminishing just yet. It's not like he's an aging superstar. So they're right up there. And this winning streak, these last few games that they won on the back of some tremendous performances from Jimmy Butler, their talisman is back. They're putting W's on the board. And a lot of this was without Bam Adebayo. Let's not forget, he's going to plug back into this team. And whatever Olynyk is doing, and he's doing a mighty fine job right now, but you bet your ass Bam would do a much better job. Obviously, both ends of the floor, right? The only thing that Olynyk does better is shoot threes. So I'm loving it. I'm loving what I see from the Heat. I think if their shooters start heating up, it's over.
This is kind of a trend, right? In the 2017-18 season, the Cavs went all the way to the finals, and then the following season they lost 16 of the next 20 games. Then the Warriors went all the way to the finals and lost, and then they started last season. Steph was out, Clay was out, KD went away, and they lost 16 of the last 20. And Heat looked like something similar. They lost 13 of the first 20 games this season to start off the season, and it looked like they were going to tank. But then Butler returned and they won 15 of the next 21, which is amazing, which is actually the third best record in the whole of NBA this season. So do you think this is a sustainable run? Do you think they can stay up there in the fourth spot, cement their place, stay above the Celtics and cement that fourth spot, maybe.
Yeah, I think they're good for fourth. The Celtics have more problems to solve than Heat, actually. And
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Smart coming back would solve some of that, but they still have a big man issue. They don't have they don't have a classic wing, so boy do they miss Gordon Hayward. And their big men just can't score. They just can't seem to score.
Yeah.
They're not very good defensively either. I don't think Tristan Thompson is what they were hoping for him to be. So
Mhm.
they've got some holes to plug. Maybe they make a trade and then this all drastically changes. But as presently constructed, I think Heat are good for fourth. Whether they sustain the streak or not, they're good for fourth. Um, Hornets, actually, Hornets is the team where I don't know if they'll hold on to their spot with the
Mhm.
Celtics chasing them down. But I'm comfortable saying the Heat would be fourth, and the top four that are there right now.
Mhm.
So Sixers, Brooklyn Nets, Bucks, Heat. I think that's about fair, and I would expect that that's how they close out. Again, as always, barring any injuries.
We'll talk about the Hornets and we'll talk about the Celtics. Just before we move on from the Heat,
Hmm?
we've always considered them a playoff team, regardless of where they finish in the table, right?
For
Do you
sure.
think they have it in them to upset one of the top three, the 76ers, Bucks, or the Nets?
If they get matched up against the Bucks, I don't even think I'm ready to call it an upset.
Uh-huh.
Every single time Miami Heat face the Bucks, I tell you they've got the Giannis stopper. They'll beat the Bucks. We called it last season. I would have been happy calling it the season before that. They just have Milwaukee's number.
Mm-hmm.
They just always do. And until Giannis turns into Kevin Durant, where he starts knocking down buckets from deep, it's tough. Bucks have a way better chance having upgraded from Bledsoe to Jrue Holiday, but I'd still give Miami Heat the edge. I think they're the better team right now. In a playoff context, they're the better team. Regular season, it's just Bucks are sort of like the kings of the regular season, and then they just fizzle out in the postseason. I would love for that trend to change, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think it's an upset if the Miami Heat beat the Bucks in the playoffs. The other two, hell yes, big time upset. Can they upset the Nets? That'll be a very interesting matchup actually. The grit and team cohesion of the Miami Heat
Mm-hmm.
versus the just firebrand greatest of all time kind of offense that the Nets have. That'll be a very interesting matchup. I'd still give the Nets the edge, but I think it'll be closer than people think it would be. Philadelphia, I feel, is built to be able to take Miami down.
Mm-hmm.
With Philadelphia, I have to say it twice, barring any injuries. Barring any injuries.
Yes, I think so. I agree. I am totally on board with your predictions as well. Moving on, I think we should talk about the Hornets. With LaMelo Ball, they found an amazing rookie. I think he's playing like he's been in the NBA for 10 years
Yeah.
or more. And that Gordon Hayward trade seemed to work out for them so far. Looks like Michael Jordan is finally getting some decisions right.
uh, they paid him a lot of money. I'd hold back on the Gordon Hayward praise. He's not playing at that level. They're playing well, but there's a bunch of factors why, right? I think Terry Rozier has been balling out.
Mm-hmm.
Hayward's had a good season. LaMelo's been sensational. There's more than one reason why they're that good.
Yeah.
Including like their backup center is Washington, who's been surprisingly good as fantasy scores would suggest, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they want to upgrade that, but he's been good. So there's a bunch of reasons why they're doing well, and I think credit to the coach as well for piecing all this together because a lot of these players came in this season. It's their first time on the squad. So to take all these eclectic styles like a borderline two-way wing, a high volume shooting guard, a point guard that doesn't have the best shot in the game but is an elite passer already, great court vision. Putting all of these eclectic things into a blender and churning out W's, it took a little while. You could see their start was shaky, but I love what I'm seeing, and they're going from strength to strength. A bit better than the Pelicans, actually. The Pelicans are kind of topsy-turvy. They get a big win, then they get a blowout defeat. These guys are a lot more consistent. Look like Michael Jordan's finally getting some, like the GM owner, Michael Jordan finally came to the party.
And they look like a fun team to play. I mean, they have all of these smaller guys, right? Terry Rozier, Gordon, not much size on there. LaMelo, Gordon Hayward, Malik Monk, and sometimes you'll have Miles Bridges come out and be the big guy and biggest guy on court. But they're one of the funnest teams to watch, and I've been watching them very consistently on League Pass, especially because of LaMelo, because the excitement that he brings onto the court when he has the ball is amazing.
Yeah, I think them and Pelicans, there's something about the Ball brothers, right? These are the teams. Like League Pass should be sold just to watch the Ball brothers play. The Pelicans with Lonzo and Zion, and and then these guys with LaMelo and the whole crew.
Let's now that you bring the Pelicans into the conversation, do you think you would pick LaMelo or Lonzo if you had to do a draft and both of them happen to be in the draft?
I think we miss context in these kind of questions when we start comparing. It's as dumb as sometimes like people draw conclusions of Shaq versus MJ. Who would you pick? Which team are you picking for?
Okay.
Like if you've got Hakeem on your squad, I'm not picking Shaq. I'm picking MJ. If I've got Kobe on my squad, I'm going for Shaq. I don't need another guard. Shaq and it's a chip. So it's it really depends on your context and your situation. If you've already got Tom Brady and you somehow have the number one pick in the draft, you're not going to draft a quarterback, however good he is.
Yeah.
You go for a tight end or a defensive back or whatever. So between those two, let me say this. I think LaMelo has a certain audacity, incredible confidence for his age in the league and his age in general on the planet. So sometimes that sort of flair play style makes it look better than it is. I'm not saying he's a good player. I'm saying bias tends to be towards these flair players versus players who get the nitty-gritties right. Right? It's why early on you would probably value a Paul George more than a Kawhi, minus the championship credentials later on. Because the game's a little more flashy, all the 360 dunks and all of that, and he's a pretty elite defender. So, but then when you see results and when you see postseason elevation and all of that, then the dust settles. So until we see both in the postseason, and that's the point I'm driving, it would be foolish to compare. Now, if we had to do a comparison today, it's a tough pick, but if the team that's drafting needs a guard that can handle the ball, that can score a few points, but that can also be a good perimeter defender, it's not even close, it's Lonzo. And from day one, that was Lonzo.
Okay.
But if you can
Lonzo's
live...
been having a good season as well.
Oh yeah. And his shooting's been up too. So, but if you need a flair, runs the show, puts people in the stands kind of player, again, it's a no contest. It's LaMelo. If you've got the two-way guard, if you've got perimeter defense, if you need this ball handler, elite playmaker, you'll live with his defensive frailties because he'll put points on the board and he's a triple-double threat every night. Exciting player that puts people in the stands. Lonzo's not it. That's got to be LaMelo. So I think it's largely dependent on context. But if both of them were to go for a payday now, if both of them were up for contract renewal, you bet your ass LaMelo is getting a bigger contract than Lonzo.
All right, so that's all for today. I think we had a ton of discussion about a ton of teams. Yeah. So this was fun doing this, and I think I will talk to you tomorrow after tomorrow's games.
Sounds good, man. Take care.